Howdy, 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 and welcome to Thriving in the Transition, the podcast, Season 2, Episode 9. I'm humbled and blessed to be able to bring this podcast to you and to be part of your lives. Your feedback, encouragement, and connection, that makes it all worthwhile. Doing this and connecting with you is just beyond amazing. It's inspirational for me, and I hope you feel the same. So, yay me, yay you, and yay us. As we continue to grow, refine our content, and broaden our audience, go ahead and give us that 5-star rating. Follow us, subscribe, add positive comments, like us, or give us a thumbs up. You know, whatever form of positive reinforcement shows up for you, that's what we want to hear. What I'm ultimately saying is that you should connect with us and you should engage with us. We're now up and available pretty much anywhere you listen to podcasts. So that's it. Search for us wherever it is that you listen to great podcasts. We strive to be among that list of great podcasts that you listen to, rely upon, and ultimately find useful. Why am I doing this? Well, I guess I wanted to create a platform and community where I could share my thoughts, my stories, my experiences, all with the purpose of connecting with and helping others. An outlet where I could be my authentic self. I want to be that pebble that creates ripples in the waters of life. Simply stated, I want to change the world, and I want you to be part of the Thriving in the Transition movement. Public service announcement number 1. Sometimes you need to pause, take a beat. Your current mindset or context determines how you approach the world and how the world receives you. The truth is that I simply want to practice what I preach. I absolutely believe that part of my purpose in this life is to connect with others. I absolutely believe that part of my purpose in this life is to connect with others and bring people together. I want to highlight and exemplify the fact that we've got more in common than we do in difference. Yeah, absolutely, the differences are much easier to identify, but discovering and appreciating the commonalities, that's much more fun. So yeah, that's partly why I'm doing this. The other part, or the rest of the story, as to why I'm doing this, is I want to shine a bright light on those slightly enigmatic, charismatic, and inspirational people among us. I want to share their stories about thriving in and during transitions. The theory goes a little something like this, that if people hear about other folks succeeding, it'll give anyone that may be struggling the motivation or encouragement to continue and thrive in their own respective transitions. Folks, this week got very scary for me very quickly. No, like safety, health-wise, I'm fine. Here's the thing. I knew I wanted to talk about scarcity versus abundance, which, by the way, that's what I'm going to talk about today. But as I started to prepare, I realized that I was running low on disk space on my computer. So, you know, me trying to be proactive, I decided to get a larger memory card, transfer some files, and ultimately put myself in a better position to not lose data, right? You probably see where this is going. After doing what I thought was going to help me, I realized that I just deleted all my previous files for this podcast. Episode ideas, gone. Recordings, gone. Notes, gone. Videos, gone. I panicked, well, as much as I do, but I froze, right? Broke out in a cold sweat, thinking to myself, what do I do now? How can I make this week's episode work? So I paused. I took a beat. Now, I'm a big enough dork to know that no computer file is ever really gone, right? I simply needed to find the right software to undelete my deleted files. So I go to the Google machine, right? All the answers are there always. And lo and behold, there's a ton of these software packages that will undelete your deleted files. but which one was right for me? But which one was right for me and my system and the way I use things? After a little bit of research, I decided to download some completely foreign piece of software that I'm going to install on my already strained PC, right? Remember, I was running out of memory to begin with. Before I hit click, I realized I had a best friend in IT security. So a few texts and one frantic voicemail later, my boy Dion Cuthbert gave me what I needed, right? Like poof. I had exactly what I needed to get to where I wanted to go. By the way, if you need a good free disk and file recovery tool, I can now recommend Test Disk from CG Security. Brilliant tool, by the way. Anyway, I was able to undelete the files that I needed and got to work on this very episode. Balance was restored to the universe, but it got off to a very, very shaky start. Now, things could have very easily gone the other way, right? I could have overwritten the disk that I had deleted files from. I could have not remembered about my best friend in IT, all this sort of thing. Was I lucky? No, right? You know my philosophy. Chance favors the prepared mind. But what I was very present to and what fit in so nicely with this episode was it's my mindset that literally determined my success in recovering those files and even delivering this podcast on time. Now, there's a lot of different mindsets out there or contexts. There's right versus wrong, fear versus bravery, arrogance versus humility, bold versus reserved, and even constitutionally unlovable. Now, all of them impact how you view the world, right? They are how you view the world, whether you act or don't act, whether others offer you help or avoid you. And no mindset has more of an impact than scarcity versus abundance. And we're going to get into that topic right after this little break. All right, folks, scarcity versus abundance. Let's start with some definitions. Scarcity, insufficiency or shortness of supply. Dearth, and dearth is just a cool word. I just had to throw that out there. But anyway, rarity or infrequency. And what I wanted to bring in to support these definitions, I want to bring in some of my dorkiness and some relevancy from the world of economics. So according to Investopedia, scarcity refers to the basic economic problem, the gap between limited, that is scarce resources, and theoretically limitless wants. This situation requires people to make decisions about how to allocate resources effectively in order to satisfy basic needs as well as any additional wants, right? So the translation here, you've got limited supply. How do you cover your wants with a limited supply of anything, aka scarcity? Now, for abundance, that definition, an extremely plentiful or oversufficient quantity or supply, as in an abundance of grain. Overflowing fullness, abundance of the heart. Or, I really like this one, and I didn't expect this one, but it kind of fits. The third definition of abundance, affluence or wealth, as in the enjoyment of abundance. So the economics bent to this one, and this comes from a book by Wolfgang Hochschild, and I just butchered that name, but Wolfgang will forgive me. He wrote a book called The Economics of Abundance. And basically this book is a critique of our current economic system. But the kicker here, he says that we find value only in scarce commodities or things which can be sold at a high price because demand exceeds supply. There's that whole supply and demand thing. Because this economy depends on demand always outstripping supply, there have to be scarcity generating institutions. Institutions and policies that either manipulate supply or demand in order to keep a constant state of need, which I just think is interesting. And I'm going to try not to go off on that tangent, but just the concept that our economy is built on scarcity, right? People always needing or requiring more stuff than they can actually get. That's why prices come in, right? Supply and demand. The lower the supply, the higher the demand, the higher the price. But my intent is not to turn this into an economics lesson or even debate on economic philosophy. I could do that. Trust me, I'm prepared to do that, but not my intent, not where I want to go. I simply wanted to illustrate the two mindsets, abundance and scarcity. They're basically two opposing forces or reactions. And the same is true for those of us with transitions. All right, starting over. I don't mean to turn this into an economics lesson or to debate economics philosophy. I simply wanted to illustrate how the two mindsets, abundance and scarcity, force two different and opposite reactions. And the same is true for those of us dealing with transitions. There's no good or bad, there's no right or wrong, but you have to be aware of which mindset you're coming from, as it may affect your intended results. Now, depending on your background, your upbringing, your experiences, you've likely become used to one or the other of these two mindsets. For me, I absolutely thrive in scarcity. I grew up not having a lot, so scarcity is comfortable for me. Scarcity forces creativity. Scarcity brings appreciation. However, scarcity can also bring envy and fear. The fear of not having or even having the possibility of having. And that fear can stop you in your tracks, cold, especially in times of transition. Now, on the other hand, abundance can also come with its own set of fear-generating circumstances. Once you have or live in abundance, there can be the fear of loss or losing that abundance. Just look at the White House right now. There can also be things like greed and non-appreciation, taking things, relationships, and even opportunities for granted. Just take a look at the White House right now. Because I grew up in scarcity, I've had to adjust. Because I grew up in scarcity, I've had to adjust to abundance and come to grips with how both have impacted my life. For example, growing up in scarcity, I've judged, criticized, and even ridiculed my own kids because they only know abundance. All right, not to their faces or anything, nothing that is going to cause a trip to the therapist, at least right now, maybe 20 years from now, we'll see. But my wife and I have had plenty of discussions on the topic. Yes, I know that's the American dream, to provide more for your kids than I had growing up. But it's also a person thing. It's a human thing. Now, I talked a little bit about this in Season 1, Episode 14, around what I learned from fatherhood. I never understood why my kids would want stuff and things, especially when we were out on family outings. And it was my reaction that would ruin the moment, not their wants. I've since learned, and I've come to grips with the fact that my kids aren't me. I also created a blog post on this topic called The Problem with Scarcity, or The Scarcity Rule All. Go to the website, go to the blog link, and search for it there. It's right there. Now, I just recently got used to the concept of getting rid of clothes simply because they were old or because I didn't wear them anymore. I would have never considered doing that or being able to do that as a kid. As a kid, I'd keep clothes and other possessions until they fell apart. Literally, I had to. There was no money for replacements. However, in that, I'm now able to donate those clothes. It's a good thing versus me, I don't know, not fulfilling something or being true to myself or the way I grew up. I can donate things and have an impact on those who currently are in the midst of scarcity, just like I grew up. Also, what I've come to understand and what I really want to convey in this episode is that, again, there's not a right or wrong when it comes to your context or the way you see the world. However, there's still opportunity to grow as a person, regardless of your relationship to scarcity or abundance. And these mindsets aren't life sentences. You can choose. You can choose to come from a place of abundance, even in scarcity. There's power there. For example, you can donate or give even when you don't have much, because you relate to those that are on the receiving end. If you search the internet, and it won't take a lot, there's stories out there of people giving away their last $5 and they come home to a check for $1,000. Now, that's not been my experience, but there are plenty of others that have had that, and I'd say the theory supported. I want to share now a few opportunities that I see that can come with each of these mindsets of abundance or scarcity. With scarcity, you've got the opportunity to develop perseverance, tenacity, creativity, goal setting, and networking, right? You likely have to live in circumstances that you no longer want to live in, or you want something better. You've got to get creative, doing more with less or doing anything with nothing, that sort of thing. That's where that list came from. Now, with abundance, you've got the opportunity to develop these things: empathy, charity, humility, networking, and goal setting. Again, you don't have to worry about the basics here in abundance, but you've got the opportunity to understand those that aren't in your position. That's why I named off those lists. Now, these lists are not all encompassing and aren't intended to be. And I don't even have to be right about what specific opportunity goes under which list. My intent is to give you something to think about. How is it that you view the world? Which of these mindsets resonates the most with you? Is it abundance or is it scarcity? And did you notice the commonalities in the list? We've got more in common than we do in difference. Abundance and scarcity, they're just one set of opposing mindsets or contexts that can color the way you see the world and thereby how we take action or not. However, by pausing and thinking about where you're coming from, you can then choose differently. Life is all about choice. You can't control people or outcomes, but you can control how you react. How has scarcity or abundance impacted you? Maybe even shaped your current context or the way you see the world. Please share your responses with us in the comments wherever you listen to this podcast. Send me an email, will.campbell, CAMPBELL, @logicconsulting.com. We want to hear from you. Well, folks, that brings us to the end of Thriving in the Transition, Season 2, Episode 9. Thanks for joining us for this sophomore season. If you're getting something from this podcast, give us a rating of 5 stars wherever it is that you listen to your podcast. Go ahead and subscribe. Add us to that list of other great podcasts that you listen to. Follow me on Twitter and Facebook at Logic Consulting. Also, follow me on Instagram at Logic_Coach. You know what? Follow me on Spotify at GQ Down. Not just the podcast. Follow me to discover the music that I use to help me thrive in the transition. Reach out to me on LinkedIn at DJ Will Rock. Don't forget to follow the YouTube channel as well. That's Thriving in the Transition. And don't forget the website, www.thrivinginthetransition.com. You can get all of our episodes right from that website. And while you're there, check out that blog link, right? You can go ahead and see the blog post. There aren't a ton of articles there, but you may find them interesting. Check things out. While you're there, also see how else we can connect. Maybe you need a coach, a keynote speaker, a business consultant. Let's go ahead and change the world together. All right, listener engagement time. What do you want to hear about? What topics are impacting your transition? Let's make this thing that we've got even more valuable than it already is. Lastly, if you're interested in supporting this podcast, if you're interested in helping us grow, send me an email, tweet, IM, direct message, whatever. You can now go to my Patreon site, www.patreon.com/TITT, TITT for Thriving in the Transition, and you can become a patron. Just click the Become a Patron button. We're working on merchandise and levels and tiers and all that fun stuff, even patron-specific content. But let us know what you want to see. I like to think of it as a brand new season and new ways for us to get connected. Most importantly, don't keep this thing that we've got a secret. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your coworkers, and tell your children. Come from a place of abundance and share this podcast with anyone that'll listen to you. Tell them you found the skills needed to thrive in transition and that they're scarce. See what I did there? Until the next episode, folks, cheers. Have a great day.